What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Nechochwen, and I am back with yet another collection update. And this one actually should round out all the stuff that I have here that I needed to go over. So technically, I guess it's time for me to buy some more music. Anyway, got a big stack in here, got some new releases, some reissues, got some cool stuff sent to me. Actually, I'm promoting one of the things that was sent to me because, I mean, I rarely ever wear a white shirt on here. But these guys were cool enough to send me a shirt and a cool CD that I'll go over here in a bit. Also got some interesting stuff from the Metalhead box as well. So yeah, we got a pretty large stack of stuff, so let's just get right down to it. And we're going to kick this one off with the latest offering from Dead Chasm, Spectral Tyranny. This is this Italian death metal act's second EP. Features current and former members of bands like Psychotomy, Horrid, Funest, and Fuoco Fatuo. I think I've pretty much gone over all of their releases. Their full length I thought was also really awesome too. And yeah, this is just some grimy, old school, kind of cavernous death metal. Occasionally borders on Death Doom. Like this only has 3 tracks, but 2 of them, the title track and Spawn in Absurdity, both have some like heavy, just disgusting, lumbering Death Doom sections, like just monotonous droning riffs. The guitar tone on here is just flat out disgusting. It almost borders on HM2, like it has that sort of like just gross, grimy sizzle to it, like it's being, boiled in motor oil. But everything about this is just fiercely old school. The opening track, Beneath Decadent Shadows, really like the slow, kind of like labored build to it. But as it goes on, like with each transition, with each riff change, it gets a little bit more intense. I kind of like that sort of dynamic. You don't hear it like that often. But yeah, this is only about like 13 minutes worth of music here, so it's a pretty short offering, but every song in here is quality. If you're a big fan of like Incantation, there's some points in here that definitely remind me of like early Hooded Menace. Bands like Mortiferum, I would even throw in like Corpus Awful, just like a little bit too. That new Ritual Mass, honestly kind of comparable to this as well. Either way, check it out. It's a short listen, but every song in here I think is pretty damn good. Alright, I said there would be more Edge of Sanity, and well, looky here, more Edge of Sanity. So we have their 5th album, Crimson, and their 8th album, Crimson II. Both of these I already own. Both of these, obviously, I bought again because I've been just kind of going after all of these Edge of Sanity reissues. And honestly, they've been worth it. Once again, both of these are 2-disc versions. You have a remaster and a remix. Again, I favored the remix on both. But the best thing about this is separating up the tracks, because while I love Crimson, I think Crimson 1, it still kind of outdoes Crimson 2. Crimson 2 is still good. My Black Mark version is one solid 40-minute track, which, that's cool and all, but when it comes down to like, putting something in a mix, it's a long track to get through, and eventually you're like, okay, I would like to move on to something else in this mix. This breaks this up into, I believe, like 8 tracks, and it's perfectly paced. The cuts are natural. It doesn't break up the flow of the song very much. Even if you just wanted to listen to one part of Crimson, you could do that and it wouldn't feel as though like you're just chopping off the song like just super abruptly. This one kind of had a separate issue because the version I have, once again I believe was the Black Mark version, I think is like almost 20 tracks or over 20 tracks, and all of them were like, a minute and a half long. A couple of them, might have been like 2 minutes. It was obnoxious for a totally different reason. And again, like the track breaks, like felt like so seamless to the point where like, why didn't you just make longer tracks? Well, this one addresses that. This one kind of breaks this one down into, I believe, 8 or 10 tracks, and it flows beautifully. This is kind of the way I've always wanted to listen to these albums. I just wanted like digestible chunks where they didn't feel as though they were cutting off the songs. The track breaks, you could definitely tell that there were points where they could have just cut it off into like larger chunks, or, in this case, like just chop up the song a bit and not lose an ounce of what the music is about, because this is absolutely fantastic writing. Like, I don't know, Spectral Sorrows is still kind of my favorite, but this one's always been kind of a close number 2. I feel like this is the one where they started embracing a lot more prog. Michael Ockerfeld is actually on here doing some backup vocals. He might have even helped out in some songwriting as well. The songs are just amazingly dynamic, hooky, melodic. Lots of just great writing across the board. Brilliant vocals from Dan Swano. Kind of brilliant everything from Dan Swano. And a lot of the same can be said for this one, though I just don't think it quite has like the impact as this one, just in terms of like the songwriting. Like this one at times feels like a little bit more straight ahead, though I mean, I don't like dislike any track on it. But yeah, I absolutely had to sag these, two of my absolute favorites from this band, and I'll probably sag, I mean, whatever's left out there in terms of the reissues. I mean, I don't think they've done Orthodox yet, and I don't think they've done the first one, though the demo collection was kind of close to them doing the first one. I don't know. I'll just get whatever they reissue for Edge of Sanity, because this band's absolutely amazing, and these remixes and remasters have both been really good. So yeah, if you're a big Edge of Sanity fan and you've been kind of debating as to whether or not to get them, honestly, I would say get them. I think they did a fantastic job with these, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting more once they reissue some more. Obsidian Tongue, Eclipsing Worlds of Scorn. This is the fourth album from this Massachusetts/Maine atmospheric black metal act. First time I'd ever heard of them. I actually considered doing a full-on review for this one, but I forget what we did instead. I don't know, doesn't matter, it's in the past. Though I will say, I kind of wish I had, because this was really solid. Atmospheric black metal, like, for me, when I see that, I kind of get something in my head about, like, what it sounds like. Like, it's mostly, like, droning atmospheric tremolos and such, and, like, cavernous, ghoulish shrieks and such. And while there is definitely that on here, this is a lot more in-depth than I thought it'd be. There are moments on here where I feel like they almost kind of, like, move into progressive territory, like touches of Enslaved and, I would say like Dissection in terms of like song structure. Songs like To Forgive Oneself, Snakeskin Tunnel Colony, and the title track in here all have like these really cool transitions. Lots of tonal shifts too. Like To Forgive Oneself is, a very pretty, very lush sounding song. Lots of shimmering guitar melodies on there. Same with the opening track, Orphaned Spiritual Warrior. It definitely feels cold, but it doesn't feel cold and dark. Like this was like the sun shining over a forest, covered in snow, like that sort of vibe overall. I guess you could also say it has like a little bit of like post black metal sort of like atmosphere to it. There's even occasionally some thrashy riffs on here. I really liked the dynamics across the board. The production here, I think, is also really good. It's very crisp sounding. Like, it has this, again, like kind of cold, icy quality, but everything sounds just very well separated. The guitars have a great tone on here. You do have like some darker, more sinister moments, again, of like offset a lot of this like bright, lush atmosphere that's on here. Theater of Smoke and Wind, and the title track in particular have like some more sinister, dissonant moments on there, but there's a lot of atmospheric beauty on here, and definitely a lot of melody. There's even like some cleaner vocal passages on here that I think work really well, and with all the like shimmering kind of dark melodies and such, like there's some qualities in here that are very similar to like Tribulation, and I would even say like Opeth a bit. And Still They Dream, the instrumental on here, I think is just this beautiful, like dark, haunting acoustic piece. You get cool war drums in there. It's a really solid transitional track to the last one, Theater of Smoke and Wind. Yeah, I pretty much just dug just about everything about this album, and I definitely want to look into more of their stuff in the future. I don't know if it's year-end material. Could be. We're not there yet, but I can definitely say I like this, and if you're a big fan of, again, I would say like Enslaved, Tribulation, Opeth, I'd also say like Dissection too. Like there's a lot of great fucking riffs on here. Check this out. Really, really good stuff. Puritan Opiate. And forgive me, this title is long and I'm going to have to read it. The drug of spring's renewal courses through your empty everything. This is, I believe the 9th offering full length. From our buddy Jason and his like ever-evolving one-man project. I still love that he sends me these, and sorry it took so long getting to this one, but I had like a mountain of stuff to go over first. Anyway, he didn't just send the CD. Actually, he only sent a note, but I'll get to that. He also sent a shirt to me, which I think is really cool. Now, the sad thing about the shirt here is it is a large, and I haven't been a large since I was a teenager, so it doesn't fit, and I don't know anyone small enough to wear this just yet. Even my nephews are, like, super tall, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be showing a lot of midriff with this. But it's an absolutely awesome shirt. I'm still very thankful for it. Thank you once again, Jason, for being kind enough to send me one. And, of course, check out his Bandcamp if you would like to actually purchase one. I'm pretty sure they're there. But Of course, he also sent me a letter, because he always sends me a letter with these, and it actually explains a lot of the themes, so we're going to go over that. Dear Nick, hey, it's been a while. Please enjoy the new album, The Drug of Spring's Renewal, courses through your empty everything. I believe it might be my most eclectic collection to date. Tracks 1 through 3 and 5 are my usual experimental blackened death metal, basically trying to channel Krallis, Imperial Triumphant, and pretty much anything else Colin Marston has ever been involved with. That's lofty. I mean, that dude's all over the place. Not sure if you've done anything quite like Behold the Octopus yet. That's still up there with like his weirdest projects, but I mean, I'd love to hear something inspired by that. Anyway, tracks 4 and 6 are dark ambient. Track 7 is a non-metal cover with clean vocals. I decided to throw in some brand new, hot off the press swag for you as well. Hope you like it, Jason. And this came with a bonus one that's just pretty much the track names and pretty much the liner notes, all music written and performed by Jason Clemens, except, and then, you know, it just has essentially the samples listed and the cover in here, which I don't really want to spoil yet because I want to get to the album itself, because this is quite a wild collection of music. First off, I want to say I think the production continues to improve with each one of these. You're getting like bigger guitars in here, and I think that makes the atmosphere even more gripping, because the cosmic swirling maelstrom of just twisted distance that kicks off this album is just, man, it's like just like staring into the eyes of a fucking elder god. Like all 27 of them, or however many they have. I don't know. They probably have a lot more than us. Out of all the stuff that you've sent me so far, I think this one definitely has like some of the most like fierce Imperial Triumphant vibes. Like, it's chaotic. There's definitely like some jazzy passages to it. It's very technical at points. The drum work on here is really solid too. I do think occasionally the drums kind of get lost in like all of the atmosphere, but for the most part, I think they sound really good. And I like the complexity of them. Like, this has like a lot of just like really interesting, very jagged, off-the-wall transitions. These first couple of tracks in particular, Debauched Ideology and Mass Psychogenic Solstice, are just wild and cavernous. The vocals in here are also like pretty damn good. The vocals definitely, again, have like that big Imperial Triumphant vibe. Curse Neutrality is a big standout for me. This one has like a little bit of the ambience, but it's more of a build, and it becomes like increasingly more dark and intense. And then when it gets down to like, you know, the heaviest section of the song, it's almost like disembowelment. It sounds dark, plotting, evil. It sounds like it's either crawling its way to the grave or from the grave, dealer's choice. But I also like the more ambient stuff, and I feel like Curse Neutrality is really connected with the title track. It takes like kind of an interesting turn into like more serene sounding synths, but it carries over well from Curse Neutrality. You have birds chirping. I believe like there's like the sound of a babbling brook in there, if I remember right. It's all like very pleasant sounds overall for the most part in there, with a lot of these like humming, droning synths. And I don't know, it creates like an air of calm after you feel like you've just like crawled through hell. Upon the Lonely Moated Grange might be one of the heaviest tracks on here. Just blistering death metal with these like super distorted vocals. It almost feels like two songs kind of composed over one another, because you get these like weird overlapping guitars and points, and sometimes the drums feel like there's like two different rhythms there. There's also a really interesting section on there where I feel like it almost shifts to like surf rock for a second, but it's done in a super evil way. I know, I kind of dug it. But the one that I was really surprised by was the cover on here. And the cover is of fake plastic trees originally done by Radiohead off of the Bends, which I still don't own a copy of the Bends. I feel like I should. I kind of got into Radiohead like a little bit later with OK Computer, and then it was like, yeah, this band gets progressively weirder with every album, and I dig it. But the Bends is essentially a hit factory, and Fake Plastic Trees is one of the songs I definitely know off there, and he does a great job on it. It's a very straightforward, like traditional cover of it. I really think the clean vocals work really well. The production on it sounds, you know, like a little bit muffled and grainy, and I think that just kind of makes it sound a little bit more intimate. But yeah, overall, this is damn good. Honestly, this might be, I don't know, it could be a new favorite of mine. I don't know, you send me so much stuff, and it's kind of hard to keep up with all of it. And having a chance to like hear this project evolve over the course of what I believe is 9 albums now, it's been a really fucking wild journey, and I think you've hit like another like level here with this one. So yeah, if you're a big fan of Imperial Triumphant, God, I mean, Krallis too. It's been a while since I've like jammed a lot of newer Krallis, but yeah, if you just like dissonant, blackened death metal, but also like some more avant-garde stuff and some ambient stuff, that kind of describes a lot of Jason's albums, but they're always eclectic, they're always interesting, and yeah, I strongly recommend this one. Check it out. And once again, thank you for sending me all this stuff. I always appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing the next evolution of your project, Jason. Chained to the Bottom of the Ocean, Sisyphean Cruelty. This is the third full length from this Massachusetts-based sludge/doom act. Saw them at MDS Pre-Fest this year. They absolutely crushed. They had one of the murkiest guitar tones I think I heard all fest long. It was fucking awesome. Well, I did manage to get like a really awesome shirt. Actually, John got the same shirt, the one with like Jesus blowing his brains out. I don't know, something about that shirt just kind of called to me. They did not have any CDs. They had vinyl. So I had to go hunting, and I am so glad I did, because this is just flat out disgusting. I mean, I kind of knew it would be because I saw the live performance. And once again, it was amazing that they closed the set with a just dingy, gross cover of Wolverine Blues. That was just about the perfect way to close it. Anyway, this is just pure filth. The guitar tone dominates this album. It is just musty and dense and putrid. And when it comes down to like riff work, this doesn't stay like necessarily in like sludge and doom. There's definitely like, you know, some death metal nods on here. Solitude Illusion in particular, that almost sounds like it was like inspired by like every slow, gloomy like autopsy moment or like Anatomia or something like that. Well, the big droning, lumbering riffs are the main thing. They do work in like points of like just gnarly feedback. Occasionally like some really interesting, dark, twisted melodies on here. Deconstruction of the Great Immovable. It's got those like kind of like chimey, like kind of hard to describe. The kind of melodies you hear on like Cave-In's Jupiter. They're shimmering, they're bright, but they still have like this kind of like, you know, gritty texture to them. I like how they incorporate those sort of melodies in that song. It doesn't necessarily like lift it out of the darkness, because the darkness is definitely where this album lives, but it kind of adds like a little bit more to it. Barely Any Reason to Be Alive. That's a fucking heartwarming title there. Huge Thou vibes. Like that one is just, you know, gross, thick, monotonous as hell. The vocals on here kind of range from like growls to like these just agonized screams. They're very distorted as well. Like the production here I think is perfect for what they're going for. Like it has that like right amount of like grit and kind of graininess to it. Like it sounds a little muffled at times. Kind of like a more lethargic version of like I Hate God. But again, like not always like purely sludge. Like the title track in here, that one's got some big death metal vibes. In fact, it ends on a particularly just gross breakdown. Yeah, I dug the hell out of this. And again, I kind of knew I would. Saw them live. I loved the set. This, it just feels oppressive and dark. It's dirty. It's very raw. And yeah, I dug like pretty much everything on here. And I definitely want to find some more of their albums. If you're a big fan of, again, like Anatomia and Autopsy, but also I Hate God, Thou, maybe like a little bit of like Crowbar too, just in terms of just hefty fucking riffs. Check this out. Absolutely killer album. Witchcraft IDAG. I think that's how you say that. Anyway, this is the 7th album from this Swedish like doom metal / occult rock. Like I've never been like fully comfortable calling this band a flat out metal band, because I think a lot of their stuff is like very like retro rockish. But occasionally they have albums or songs that are just quite a bit heavier than their normal stuff. So, I mean, they traipse on that metal boundary, maybe enough to call them flat out metal, but I don't know, you could call them flat out rock, and I'd be totally fine with it. It wouldn't matter, because the music's just generally pretty awesome. I will say, though, that since the album Legend, which is probably my favorite album of theirs, they've been a little bit hit or miss. They absolutely crushed it at MDF. They sounded absolutely amazing. We only got to catch a couple of songs because we were fucking sore and fucking beaten down by the time they came on, and just wanted to go back to the hotel room and fucking pass out. But they sounded great. Big, warm, fuzzy guitars, you know, great drum sound. The vocals were absolutely amazing. This dude's just got such a great, like, flat out, like, old school rock voice. Now, I will say that some of these songs are in Swedish, and I will probably fuck those up just because, oh, they're Swedish and in cursive. Oh, that makes it even more challenging. But I will say that this is a pretty solid album. Whereas you could argue Legend definitely had like more like modern production. This kind of returns back to the roots of having that more fuzzy analog sound. The riffs are firmly rooted in, you know, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, big vocal hooks. Again, Magnus, killer vocalist. Great warm bass throughout this entire album. And it opens up strong with the title track, which is just this big riff buffet of just stony, warm, catchy riffs and cool melodies. Really good use of like Hammond organ or keyboard in there too. You can pretty much say like this is almost like a perfect balance between doom metal and stoner metal. Like it has stoner metal's warmth, but it has doom metal's like more foreboding darkness. Both of them have like kind of like a jam band sort of sense too, in terms of like, hey, let's just play these riffs and see where these riffs take us. I love that about both genres. I love that about both genres when they meet up, and this kind of feels like that. I will say that this is a little all over the place. Like the tonal shifts between songs can really shift. You get like the more like hefty rock songs where they're just like riff driven as hell, but you also get songs that are just kind of like gloomy ballads like Christmas. What a great fucking title for a dirge. I don't know, maybe they feel the same way I feel about Christmas. Like, I know, and a lot of people are like, oh, joy, it's Christmas. I'm like, oh, fuck, it's Christmas. But yeah, totally, it can be all over the place. You do get like some shorter tracks that kind of feel like they were, you know, maybe a little incomplete occasionally. But I do think this had like some issues in terms of like dynamic range. The song Irreligious Flamboyant Flame in particular feels like it's like decidedly more muffled than the other tracks. Like maybe there was an issue with like dynamic range and somehow that one kind of got left off. I don't know, but you can definitely hear like a production difference that's not for the better. But for the most part, I really dug this. Like, I just dig this band. They do this retro 70s rock sound so well, and they make it sound just gloomy and oppressive and dark. Spirit, also a great song in here. Very, very bluesy on that one. But yeah, this was a thoroughly enjoyable listen for the most part. You know, it does feel a little uneven at times, but it's not something that overall hampers the enjoyment of the listen, I think. If you're a big fan of Black Sabbath and, you know, Deep Purple, maybe a little bit of Thin Lizzy here and there, and, you know, just like some flat out blues rock too, check this album out. Damn good. Year of No Light. And forgive me, I have to read this, and it's in French, so get ready for it to sound fucking wrong. Les Maîtres Fous? Maybe? Probably not. Anyway, this is the 6th album or EP. I'm not sure if this is an album or it's an EP. It's one like 30-minute track, so I don't know, kind of a gray area there. Anyway, from this French post-metal, post-rock, drone ambient act. I've been a fan of this band since their second album, Auserwelt. You know, I'm a sucker for like lush post-metal and post-rock. Like I like these like long droning songs, and you know, the post-metal dynamic alone, like that slow build and building in layers, I'm still an absolute sucker for it. And it had been a while since I had actually picked up an album by these guys, and I'm still missing like quite a few, honestly. So I saw this came out and I snagged it, and this is pretty good. I've definitely heard better by this band. This is honestly, in terms of like anything I own by them, like the ultimate slow build. Like this is pretty much ascending like a very gradual slope of a mountain the entire time. The first 10 minutes of the song does not even have any percussion. This is slowly built by like a droning sort of hum in the background and these pulsating synths that gradually kind of get more intense. The 10-minute mark comes along and you get like some very light percussion, and that kind of stays very light for a while. Like this is, again, super gradual. You do get some guitars that eventually work their way in very slowly. I think they're using a Dremel on them to make them sound even more like, you know, fuzzy, but also like dense, like you can't hear like individual picking at all. But in terms of like the production, it's kind of cool to hear these elements kind of like move forward in the mix and then move back. Like, you know, a lot of the more ambient stuff starts kind of falling back in the mix as the guitars kind of like take over. And you get this like gradual build throughout, and then like I think a little bit after like the 17-minute mark, it kind of drops out and sinks into this like synthy dark abyss. A lot of this, you know, very much in line with bands like Cult of Luna, Russian Circles, Bosk too, like a little bit. But unlike those bands, I feel like there wasn't much of a payoff here in terms of like that grand crescendo where they would build everything back up. Like around the 20-minute mark, like it gets louder, they start fading in on the guitars again, and it gets kind of big, and then it kind of just shrinks back down to almost the exact point it started at, and I was like, well, that was good. I've definitely heard better from this band. I've definitely heard better from other post-metal bands. It wasn't terrible by any means, but I feel like they kind of like wasted a lot of momentum, kind of like dragging it out to like the bigger, more lush sections. Like it didn't get down to like the heavier, drony sections that I was really looking forward to. I feel like I only got like a little bit of that. Still, not a terrible album by any means, and if you like more slow-paced, more ambient, post-metal, post-rock, whatever, or if you just like ambient music in general, I would still recommend checking this out. It's got, again, kind of like an interesting slow build to it. It's just, you know, it kind of took too much time getting to the destination, and then pretty much just went, well, we're here, let's turn around and go right back. Kind of wanted to hang out at the summit of this gradual sloping mountain for a little bit, take in the scenery and whatnot. But yeah, still a solid listen overall. Again, it just kind of depends on like what you like in your post-metal, post-rock, drone, ambience, whatever. So yeah, just check it out and find out if this is for you. Sadistic Force, Morbid Odyssey. This is the third EP from this Austin, Texas black and thrash act. Got this in the Metalhead box. Never heard of this band, but looking at the cover, I kind of had a feeling, it's like, you know what, I'm probably going to like this. This looks like fun. The dude is legit exhaling the album title in smoke. I don't know, there's something to be said for that. But this is just riffy, furious, old school, black and thrash, a lot of big 80s vibes on here. Riff upon riff upon riff. Like this is just fast paced, lots of machine gun guitars, solid vocals, great lead trade-offs. All of these songs in here pack a punch, and this actually includes some bonus tracks that were part of their Iron Right single, which was just the song Iron Right, and a Motorhead cover, I'm So Bad, Baby, I Don't Care, which I'm always down for a Motorhead cover. But yeah, this thing is just rowdy, it's explosive. It doesn't just lay on D beats too, like there's good pockets of blast on here, like Soft Flesh for the Dungeon of the Damned. There's some really good lead trade-offs where one lead is over a D beat and the next one is over like, you know, some blasts and such. Everything on here feels like it's just calculated for just fun. Like whatever would inspire the crowd to just spin around and fucking throw shit and headbutt each other, that's exactly what they played. You get a good mix of like heftier, more aggressive thrash riffs, some really solid, just like classic speed metal riffs with like a little bit more melody. The title track, I think, does that super well. Strike After Strike has a really awesome drum intro that honestly reminds me of like, well, Pete Sandoval doing that awesome drum check. Abnormal Cruelties is probably like the most blackened, darkest song on here. There's a lone song on here that doesn't sound like it wants to attend a kegger and like set something on fire. Well, maybe it does want to set something on fire, or maybe someone. Like the difference between that song and the other songs is like the difference between Criminal Mischief and then I don't know, Attempted Murder maybe. But yeah, this EP absolutely rules. All the tracks on it were a lot of fun. If you're a big fan of Midnight, Bewitcher, Toxic Holocaust, Grave Ripper, tons of bands like that that just do like rowdy black and thrash. Check this EP out. It's a fucking blitz of fun, and I don't know, could be one of the best EPs that I've heard this year. I know there's a lot in contention for that, but yeah, this just absolutely rips. Solace X Inferris. Demons Supremacy. I don't know how to say a lot of these words. Anyway, this is either the first album or first EP from this international death metal slash technical death metal slash brutal death metal act. I guess you could kind of loosely consider it a supergroup too, considering it has current former members of bands like Demonic Resurrection, Brain Drill, and even Cavalera. Most notably, I would say like the most well-known guy on here is probably Lord Marco, Brain Drill, 6 Feet Under. Dude's a beast of a drummer and really hard to miss on here because right out of the rip, man, I just don't like this production. God, the drums are loud, especially the snare. The snare is just ridiculously loud. Stylistically, I would say this leans a little bit more towards brutal death slash brutal tech, like, you know, lots of blast beats, lots of you know, heavy double bass. There's like gravity blasts on here. Solid vocals. They don't really kind of like lean too much in their brutal death. Like they're not all like super deep gurgles. Really just like a solid roar throughout. Guitar work, I mean, it's riffy, it's chunky, lots of like big chromatic, hefty like breakdown chugs, but also like techie noodles across the fucking entire album. I will say that it feels like a bit uneven. Like it's definitely very technical when it needs to be. Like, you know, they'll show off some spots where they get into like some like more, you know, intricate riff work, some clever harmonies and such, and like some interesting drum patterns, but there's a lot of like colliding spots in here, like the song Construction of the Great Divide. The riff work on there feels like decidedly very like old school and like, you know, kind of old school brutal death, I guess you could say, like kind of like Suffocation or like Baphomet, Broken Hope, something like that. But the drums feel like kind of disconnected from it. Like this is, you know, a song that could probably use a little bit more groove, and Marco is just blasting his fucking ass off on that song. Destroying Malevolence has some like almost like Black Dahlia Murder moments. It's a little bit more melodic, but it kind of has like a darker tinge to it. I don't know, like this is one of those where I feel like there's a lot of colliding ideas, and again, this is international. You have members from the US, I believe Europe, also from India too, because the vocalist is from Demonic Resurrection. And this came out in 2021, like we're still kind of in the fucking pandemic haze around then, so this is probably like a lot of like file sharing and, you know, like jamming via like streaming services or sharing ideas that way, and you don't get like the whole vibe that this was like jammed as a band, because it probably wasn't. So I feel like there's kind of like a disconnect stylistically, because I feel like there's like a lot of colliding ideas in here that, and I'm just, again, like not a huge fan of the production. This is another one that came in the Metalhead box, and yeah, it's okay. Like it's definitely brutal. It's definitely got its riffs. It just, again, feels like, you know, a lot of colliding ideas on here. Sometimes you can get like the most talented fucking musicians in the world together, and they just don't quite gel in terms of like, you know, coming up with like solid songs and such. Like, yeah, they can play their asses off, but it can just turn into like them just kind of just showing off more so than trying to do stuff that's like, you know, servicing the song rather. I don't know. I think it was okay. If you're a big fan of Brain Drill and Black Dahlia Murder and, you know, like a little bit of Suffocation, I don't know. There's a lot of different styles on here in this relatively short listen. Still, check it out. Give it a whirl. Who knows? You might really dig it. I just thought it was okay. Nechochwen. Spella with a B? Maybe? I have no idea how to say the first 5 tracks in here. Thankfully, the last 4 tracks are in English, and that was quite merciful of this band. Anyway, this is the 5th album from this West Virginia / Ohio-based black metal / neo folk act. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about this band over the years. A lot of comparisons to like Panopticon and such, and I've been meaning to actually check out some of the stuff, so I decided to get this one. And I feel like I kind of got the wrong one. This is their newest album, and this is entirely neo folk. Not that that's bad, it's just I kind of wanted that balance of black metal and folk, you know, just to kind of get like a read on this band's main sound, because I feel like this is a slight departure from what they usually do. I could be wrong. Again, this is my first experience with them. This is a 2-man project. Features Andrew DeCagna of Brimstone Coven and Iron Flame, and Aaron Carey, who I don't really know any of his work, but I know he likes working with Andrew DeCagna because this is not the only project he has with them. Anyway, most of this is, you know, very acoustic driven, very atmospheric, like lots of like tribal, you know, hand percussion, whistles, chants. It's, you know, very moody. It's, you know, entirely centered around, I would say, like Native American, like meditational sort of music. And honestly, it's pretty cool. Occasionally they'll throw in some stuff that's almost kind of proggy in there. The 3rd track, which I have no idea how to say that. No, that's silly. Probably doesn't sound anything like that, but that song, the 3rd track on the album, there's like a little bit of like, I don't know, like stuff that I would compare to like, you know, early Genesis or like Yes or Gentle Giant, stuff like that. The 4th track, Off Wicca, you know what? Not even gonna try it. That's just, I don't even know how to possibly say that. A little bit of like, you know, bluegrass kind of infused in that one too. There's some really good like rainy atmosphere to it. A lot of this is very like just soothing and hypnotic. It feels like it's kind of dark, but there's really no lyrics or really barely any vocals to kind of like guide you on here. A lot of the vocals are just, kind of meditating, like kind of hums and such, just kind of contributing to the melody itself. But this doesn't get like heavy or dark or really riffy at all or anything like that. Like, again, there's nothing on here that I would say is metal. Like, this is just straight up neo folk. So to be fair with this band, not that I dislike this, I think this is actually quite good. I feel like I kind of started off like the wrong point with this band. But this is a really interesting listen, and especially when you get down to the songs that are in English, it's kind of a shift in tone going from like, more Native American themed like neo folk to like something that is a little bit more like European tinged. A lot of variety in the way things are played in here. Like, you have some like slap guitar that shows up, some really beautiful atmospheric points. It's a solid album. It's just not entirely what I was looking for in terms of like getting into this band or in terms of like what people have told me about this band, but it was still a really interesting listen. And God, in terms of like comparing this to anything, like, yeah, it definitely has some similarities with Panopticon. I would also say like Tomahawk's Anonymous album, that's honestly the closest comparison I think I could really make here. But yeah, check this out. Not metal at all, but still really good. Mortal Decay, Sickening Erotic Fanaticism. This is the 1997 debut. This is also a 2025 reissue on Distant Tapes. From this New Jersey-based technical / brutal death metal act. I've been meaning to get some of their stuff for years. And yes, I'm trying to keep this somewhat censored because this cover is not. At least I found a censored image so YouTube won't lose its shit over the fact that they're like, titties on the screen, and I'm doing my best to keep it that way here. But I heard this band years ago on compilations for death metal. We're gonna try that. That's a little bit easier. And I've been meaning to pick up some of their albums. In fact, I ordered another one of their albums not too long ago. It just hasn't arrived yet. But this band was, very similar to bands like, Disgorge, Dying Fetus, Skinless, Suffocation, Cryptopsy, kind of all those bands rolled together. Intensely brutal, fast-paced blast beat sections, but also a lot of like cool riff changes. Like, this was definitely pretty damn technical for the time. It isn't quite as like dizzying as a like None So Vile or anything like that. The drum work I think is damn good, but not quite on Flow's level. But I mean, honestly, few are. Lots of blast beats, lots of groove on here too, and like big like Suffocation style grooves. Like let's see, Revived Half Dead, the title track, Colombian Necktie. And when this band wants to go like full bore, like technical and insane, they do a pretty solid job. Meditating Through Mayhem in particular was a standout. Crazy riff changes. The drum work's absolutely nuts on here. I will say that this is like a little bit long. I want to say it's over an hour with the bonus track on here, which bonus track was awesome. Some of the songs feel like they're a little weighted down by like just how technical and how fucking just brutal they're getting. Like a little bit of editing and some of them probably would have made them like a touch stronger, but overall I was still banging my head and just like going like, dude, this is absolutely fucking filthy. It was honestly like the groovier pockets that kind of like kept this like, a little bit more engaging, because if this was just all like blasts and technical riffs like the entire time, it'd be kind of hard to focus on. Like again, Colombian Necktie and Opening the Graves in particular have really solid standout, like groovier moments. The lurching harmonized riffs that are on Opening the Graves in particular, like honestly is like one of my favorite moments on this album. But it's good about breaking up the pace of this, because man, dude, like it's just like on you like the entire fucking time. It's mercilessly brutal. It's even got some gnarly samples on it on Soaking and Entrails, and honestly like a little bit of like Carcass kind of worship on that one too. But yeah, this whole thing was pretty damn fun despite it being maybe a little bit long. If you're a big fan of like any of the bands that I mentioned in the beginning, like those are the main ones that this band sounds like, check this out. I did order, I believe, their follow-up to this one, which is, from what I gather, like a fan favorite. So finally getting into this band after a long time of just having them on like compilations from years ago. But yeah, pretty sick stuff. And since you're being patient with a longer video here, I'll give you a little boob peek. There you go. All right, gonna put it in the pile now. Traffic Death, 4-disc pileup. Now, a little while ago, I did a States of Metal on Iowa, and I went over a band called Traffic Death. and they liked what I said about their album Dead End, and were kind enough to send me this 32-track compilation that includes Dead End, as well as I think everything that they released up until like 2018. And actually, this is where I got the shirt, which you can't see the bottom of it, but it has the caption underneath this guy's lovely face, "Too late, fuck you." So before I get into this, they sent me a letter, and I want to go over that. John, which they got the wrong Thrall, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. Thanks again for covering the band in your video. Always cool to see/hear what people think. Here's the 4-disc pileup CD with our first 4 vinyl releases compiled onto 1 disc. It's available at our Bandcamp for just $5. Keep that in mind, go to their Bandcamp. We're working on a second CD that will have our next 3 releases on it, which I'll send once we have that put together. Cheers, Nate, and they even threw in their phone number and their Gmail in here, which I'm not going to share with you guys, just because. And all written on the back of a cool flyer for a show that they probably had a long time ago. But yeah, if you didn't watch the Iowa States of Metal, God, man, this band is an absolutely ridiculous, over-the-top meshing of thrash, grindcore, and death metal. Like, think Exhumed, Terrorizer, like Nuclear Assault, kind of all wrapped into like one crazy band that just likes to talk about fucking traffic-related incidents and just irreverent dark humor on like virtually every track. Now, I was familiar with Dead End, but this also includes their other full-length that I hadn't heard, Don't Be a Projectile, which is a great fucking title, as well as like some cuts from like various EPs. And, you know, stylistically, there's not a lot of difference in the albums. I don't give a shit about that. I wanted pretty much a kind of wrecking ball of a fucking listen. Like, this is a no-breaks run of a compilation, and there are no fucking airbags. The riffs are savage, and they're also like really clever about changing around styles in these very short, very just explosive songs. Like, you go from like full-on like death metal tremolos to like classic speed metal riffs to a full-on grindy fit after that. The vocals have a lot of variety to them. Sometimes they're shrieked, sometimes they're growled. It kind of depends on the song and the kind of transition. I love the samples on here. They picked a lot of, you know, clever, dark, funny, fucking gory samples, and some that I actually picked up right away. The song Thirst features the whole cough syrup driving gag from Stripes when he picks up that bitch of a fare. And the sample at the end was the one that really caught me, because I believe it opens with the Stripes sample. The sample at the end, it took me a while to figure out where that one came from, because I haven't watched this movie in a while, because it pretty much killed C. Thomas Howell's career. If anyone remembers the movie Soul Man, where the 80s tried to get away with blackface, it's pretty fucking cringe, but the one moment they sampled was admittedly funnier than fuck. But yeah, this whole album, this whole compilation was just a fucking blast to go through. Again, the frequent switch-ups in the songs, I think that keeps this kind of fresh. Like, not a lot of these songs ran together. Like, yeah, stylistically, sometimes they could be a little bit similar. But the samples and the irreverence and all that, like, this is like a perfect storm of fucking just ridiculousness for me. So yeah, if you're a big fan of any of the bands I mentioned, plus like Kill the Client, Ed Gein, Repulsion, just shit like that, trust me, check this out. And I really hope they send me the next comp, because this one was an absolute blast to go through. So looking forward to getting that in the mail. And again, thank you guys for the shirt. Thank you for checking out the video. And yeah, everyone else, check this out. This is just ridiculous fun, trust me. Nynocht, Foulness. This is, oh, well, kind of a mystery to me. I had no idea who this was. Turns out that this is a comp from a Cleveland/Phoenix-based blackened death, blackened thrash act. I don't know. I know that it features Dawn of the Dead from Nunslaughter, and this is just grimy, like very raw, two-step oriented blackened death metal, blackened thrash. I don't know. I feel like it leans a little bit more towards blackened death. Either way, this is just kind of filthy and ridiculous. And I'm a big Nunslaughter fan, but this is like just kind of like wildly different, especially when it comes down to Don's vocals. He is fucking hamming it up on this thing. Lots of moans and groans, screams, shrieks. There's lots of reverb on his vocals. Well, I mean, on some of the tracks. This is a compilation for damn sure, because the production can vary on a lot of tracks, but It's very raw. It's very primal. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of war metal-ish. I don't know, maybe. Definitely has the whole aesthetic there. You do get like some elements of like, you know, death metal and thrash metal and songs like Christophobia, Septic Shock, Murder Myself. There's punky two-steps on Vultures, Feed on Me, and Crippled Traitor. I don't know, this feels like, you know, just sort of like a side project where they were kind of like fucking around because, I don't know, like some of these songs just feel like, I don't know, like intentionally a little bit goofy. Like Murder Myself and Septic Shock have some of the most ridiculous vocals I think I've ever heard Dawn the Dead do. And he's got a good over-the-top delivery anyway, but these feel deliberately hammed up just for like the additional atmosphere. Please Slice My Skin also is really outlandish because like it has like the whole like Wicked Witch of the West, I'm melting sort of like delivery to the vocals. Like, okay, I can't quite take that seriously. There's some solid riffs on here though, like some good like Celtic Frostish moments, but I don't know, this was just sort of a weird listen, and I don't know really what became of this project. I think they did release an actual full length, but I even had a hard time finding information on this release because this I think is a Metalhead Box exclusive. I don't know, it's kind of goofy and kind of silly, but I mean, admittedly it was still kind of fun. If you're a big fan of God, I don't know. I mean, you know, Celtic Frost maybe. Definitely some more like primal, raw, blackened death metal acts and such. I can't really think of any off the top of my head right now. I don't know. Check it out though. It's pretty entertaining. Could be fun for your next Halloween party. I don't know. Check it out. Escaton, Tectolitarian. This is the third album from this Massachusetts/Connecticut-based technical death metal /deathcore act. I have been a fan of this band since Sentinel Apocalypse. Features current and former members of bands like Arsis, Inanimate Existence, Alter Beast, and as of recently, Obscura, because this band features now departed lead guitarist Christian Munzer. He apparently joined the band last year, probably around the time that he realized Obscura was not a very good place for him. And apparently he was looking for a project to completely go off on because this album is absolutely saturated in his awesome lead work. Occasionally maybe bordering on too much, but I don't know, it's still all really well done. And musically, this band sounds about as tight as fucking ever. Kind of a good balance of bands like The Faceless, Veil of Fanath, or Nath, or however you fucking say that word. And I would even say like with its more brutal elements in here that do pop up, a little bit of Ingested, you got good syncopated breakdowns, really solid techie riffs with like a good solid amount of melody to them. Like I would say the Faceless comparison definitely holds up, especially in a lot of the riff work on here. Overall, I'd say it's like a little bit more blasty. Like there's definitely a lot of like, you know, necrophagus love on here. But when it comes down to like some of the slower grooves and the more intricate riffs on here, a lot of Faceless. Blood of the People in particular, definitely a big standout. Love the techie riffs. That cool fucking fade in is just gnarly. Like it just kind of gets right off to the races. Drum work on that song is solid as hell. It's blasty, it's crisp. Occasionally maybe you could say it's a little bit mechanical, but there are songs in here where he loosens up his drum work, and I think it's even more interesting, like the Bellicose Duality and Antimatter in particular. There's just something about like those like fun off-time rhythms and the cymbal work on those songs that they feel like they're a little bit more loose. One of my complaints about tech death occasionally is that it does feel too mechanical, and I like hearing those moments where they kind of loosen up and sound, I mean, human for a second. Hellfire's Woe has some like cool like gothic Phantom of the Opera kind of qualities to it. Really solid neoclassical lead harmonies. It definitely shows off their more melodic flair. Same thing with the last track, Castle Straned, which is, you know, clearly a tribute to Trevor, you know, from Black Dahlia Murder, We Still Miss Ya. But it's an interesting kind of like two-sided coin because it is a tribute to him clearly in the name, but it's also a tribute to the music of Castlevania, which, I mean, Castlevania themes were in Black Dahlia Murder. What a horrible night to have a curse might still reign as the best Castlevania-inspired fucking song ever, or at least in my opinion. But this might be a close second. They do a solid job with it. It's got its gothic melodies. It's very melodic, but still just bludgeoning and blasty. Honestly, this was really solid. And again, like tech death is kind of hit or miss with me, but these guys did a really solid job on here. And while I could say that it does kind of start off like a little bit more on the stiff side, it eventually opens up a little bit more, kind of loosens up, and kind of adds like a little bit more variety to the listen. You know, Christian crushes it on like every fucking lead. You might argue there's too many of them. I kind of hear that argument, but at the same time, I don't know. Gotta let a man shred sometimes. But yeah, if you like Necrophagus, and Black Dahlia Murder, and The Faceless, and Ingested, and shit like that, check this album out. Pretty damn good. Decrepacy, Deific Mourning. This is the second full length from this Portland-based death metal act. Features current and former members of bands like Ascended Dead, Vastum, Coffin Rot, and Acephalix. I've been stoked to go over this album since I got it, but I had so much other shit I had to go through, and oh my god, man, this is up there with one of the best death metal albums I've heard this year. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bands that are in that company, but man, this is just oppressive, dark. I love the production here. This is just cavernous and grimy. It sounds like it was recorded in a damp tomb. I really love the lead work on here in particular, like both in terms of like solos, but mostly it's those lead melodies. Like there's these constantly like squirming lead melodies across all these just rotten, filthy, chuggy riffs. It becomes a big part of the atmosphere in here. Like, you know, you're in this crypt and things are slithering by in the darkness and you can't quite fucking see them, but you can most definitely hear them. That and the vocal production here. Again, this is just cavernous as hell, but it's these swirling whispers that they put around a lot of the vocals. Like there's, you know, frequently moments on here where, you know, you get those long sustained growls, but there's also this kind of like breathy whisper, like it's right in your ear, like across this entire album. And that gave this like just a flat out like unnerving dark vibe. Like this just isn't heavy. Like this is heavy and dark and just ominous. Like it feels like this album has never seen sunlight. It drips with atmosphere, but it also has just like caveman bludgeoning riffs. Like there's a lot of stuff in here that reminds me of like Undergang and like the most grimy version of like Bolt Thrower. Definitely some Autopsy-esque sort of vibes on here. Songs like the title track, Spiritual Decay, 1/4 Dead. It's an interesting one. Corpseless. These songs all have these like lumbering death doom sections, and when this band slows down and lets that guitar tone ring out, like it is just all encompassing just darkness. Like you were just eaten by a fucking shadow with teeth. The songs are really well paced, great builds, like there's really no lull in energy. The last track is kind of a break from, you know, a lot of what this album's about. Like it almost has like a more like industrial sort of vibe to it. You get these like chanted vocals and like pulsating synths. Honestly, weirdly enough, the thing that I thought about was the whole It's Magic song from Ghostbusters when all the ghosts break up because, you know, Dickless turned off the power grid. I actually went back and listened to that entire song, and honestly, you know, it kind of ruined that song a little bit because I thought the entire song was like that last part. But the whole first part of it is just kind of okay. But there's something kind of similar about that song and After Hours in terms of like the vibe it puts off. Albeit After Hours, hell of a lot more darker. Like, those weren't ghosts just escaping there. That would be like Satan breaking out and just shitting all over New York City. But yeah, I love this. This is absolutely awesome. Possibly year-ender right here. You know, there's been some really solid death metal that's come out, but this is, oh man, this one's notable, I would say. If you're a big fan of any of the bands I brought up, especially like Undergang and, you know, like Autopsy and Bolt Thrower, like just like an old school and grimy, check this album out. It's so fucking good. Street Tombs, Reclusive Decay. This is the debut album from this New Mexico-based death metal act. I saw these guys in 2023, which is the year that this came out, at Heavy Hell in Indianapolis. They put on an absolutely killer live set, but they also didn't have much in the way of merch. So when I was shopping around for that Decrepacy album, I saw this one in the same distro, which was carbonized, and I was like, oh, well, fuck. I'm just going to get that. And this is pretty awesome, just kind of thrashy, old school death metal. A lot of D beats, a lot of machine gun riffs. In fact, that's kind of like the bulk of it. But it's a fun fucking release. Like, I was just, you know, kind of banging my head to every track. Like, you do get, like, pockets of groove where they break out of the D beat, but a lot of this, you know, it's kind of got, like, kind of a D beat crust sort of vibe, like, you know, like Early Death and, like, Obituary for the most part, except without all, like, the swampy grooves. The guitars, you know, they have, like, a little bit more of a thrashy tone, though the vocals themselves have definitely more of like an early death metal sound to him. Honestly, his delivery reminds me a lot of Chad from Frozen Soul, like, you know, short barked growls, but they're spaced out really well. And I kind of like the cadences over these rhythms too. Like, I don't know, it kind of just makes them sound like, you know, a little bit more aggressive. Love the production here. It just has like kind of a very like organic, like, you know, early 90s sort of sound. The drums are crisp. Guitars have got a great crunch to them. It's well separated. You do get a couple of spots of, you know, like interesting atmosphere in here on Devour and Rising Torment. They kind of just have these like synthy passages that, I mean, they kind of come out of nowhere. They're not bad, like they're like classic horror synths, but I don't know, I felt like they kind of came in at like weird points in the album. But yeah, my main complaint on here, you could almost argue is still kind of a strength because a lot of the songs are kind of the same, but they're in a similar vein that I really enjoyed. Like, they're all catchy, they all have like solid riffs, albeit like a little bit similar. And, you know, the whole kind of like sticking to the D beat thing, it doesn't do much in terms of like making the song sound different, but it also kind of keeps that good, solid, like energetic drive throughout the entire album. So, you know, can't complain too much. If you're a big fan of like Death, Toxic Holocaust, again, like a little bit of like Obituary and like Bull Thrower, and yeah, God, I would even say like Massacre too. Check this out. Pretty fucking solid debut here. Carbomb, Mordial. This is the fourth album from these New York mathcore legends. I don't know what else I would actually call this band. They are easily among like the most complex, twisted bands I think I've heard in terms of like polyrhythmic metal or anything of that ilk. Like, this is almost like a perfect hybrid of bands like Candiria, Ion Dissonance, and surprisingly also like, you know, Cynic too. Now, I had actually streamed this album like years ago because I believe they were touring on this album when John and I went to go see Gojira on their tour for Magma. They were the opening band, and I tell you what, it was an absolute treat watching people try to headbang to this that had never heard Carbomb before. It looked like the entire crowd had like fucking Parkinson's. Like, it was pretty fucking wild. But I hadn't listened to them since their like debut Centralia, which I believe is one of the few albums that they have put out that was actually on a label, because these guys like to release stuff independently. But listening to that set and, you know, hearing music that I hadn't heard from them before, I was like, man, dude, this is just really different. Like, because Centralia was a very raw, very chaotic, you know, polyrhythmic fucking chugathon, but it didn't have a tremendous amount of like melody to it. These guys found a way to work in melody, I would say, you know, probably around this album, maybe a little bit before it. But songs like the title track, Hella, Fade Out, Vague Skies, there were really good additions of like clean vocals and really interesting like melodic guitar passages that were a little bit more conventional. Not much about this band is conventional. Like, when it comes down to the rhythms, you know, the syncopation is, it's ridiculous. Lots of stop-start transitions and beats themselves. The riff work is bizarre. Like, while you get like a lot of the hefty syncopated chugging a la like Meshuggah, it kind of goes beyond there with like these very like stretchy, elastic riffs all the time, and vocal cadences that, you know, follow those meters so fucking tightly. And while the heavy syncopation is like a big thing with this band, there's also a lot of creativity in terms of just like the stuff they do, like the lurching riffs giving way to like syncopated ones, giving way to like decidedly more melodic, like atmospheric moments. There's definitely points in here where, again, I would compare some of the melodies to be almost kind of like Cynic-esque. Black and Battery is almost like genty thrash. Like, it has like some straightforward DB gallops, but again, like the transitions, getting back into those like off-time grooves and such is just fucking nuts. Anti-Patterns has these, God, almost like shoegazy like melodies on there. Like, it's very lush and bright and shimmering, and then again, right back down to the like gnarly chugs and such, so you get this really interesting contrast in some of these songs. And when they decide to do like some actual leads and such, like Naked Fuse, like there's some really good tapping on here. This is just kind of a marvel of technical play, but also it's not just one of those listens where you're just kind of like, you know, like, oh wow, this is just incredibly technical and I'm marveling at the musicianship. I really like the composition, and this is like legit really catchy for what it is. It's one of those bands I've been like streaming their stuff and I just haven't been picking up, and luckily they put out an absolute banger of an EP this year, and decided to snag this one, and guess what? I'm probably going to go back and go get what I don't own by this band now, because yeah, I feel like I've kind of rekindled something with Car Bomb here. If you're a big fan of, oh God, I mean, like Meshuggah feels like kind of like a good starting point, but again, Ion Distance, Candiria is probably the closest thing that I could compare this to, and even that's not quite it. But yeah, just check out this album and just check out this band in general. They're just fucking amazing. Mortal Veil, The Undying Lands. This is the second full length from this Kentucky-based one-man atmospheric black metal act. I'll put a question mark in there because the more I got into this, the less I felt that this was purely black metal. Anyway, this was one I got in the Metalhead box. This is a limited edition with extra tracks on it, and at a whopping 74 minutes. This was quite a long listen. And when I saw all this was themed around Tolkien, I was like, oh boy, do we have a very long-winded bedroom black metal album? I really hope not. And we didn't. This had a lot of surprises. Namely, riff-wise, yes, it's atmospheric. Yes, it's very lush at points. It's also very riffy, and this thing sports some like flat-out death metal riffs. While all the songs in here are very long, all of them over 10 minutes, they don't overdo the atmosphere. The opening track, Lorien, you know, of course you have to have like some setup because, I don't know, we're going to the mythical world of Middle Earth, and you might as well. But as soon as the music started and I heard the guitars being very hefty, very chuggy, very thick, I was like, wait a minute, this is not what I expected. The whole beginning of that song kind of has like a more death metal vibe, complete with deeper vocals overall too. Like, it doesn't really start to sound like black metal until I would say like kind of close to the middle of the song. The vocals alternate between, you know, the main guy doing his growls and then folky female vocals, which I don't know if she's a full-time member, but this woman did all the clean vocals on here, and she did a really good job. Like, you know, it has that very Rivendell sort of sound, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to try to make as many Tolkien references as I can here. But you get this constant, like, contrast, like this ebb and flow, like, you know, going to, like, the pleasantness of the Shire all the way to fucking Mordor. And, again, like, death metal. Like, it has, like, big death metal riffs on here. There's some really good atmospheric black metal parts in here, of course, because I think that's the kind of the core of the sound. But I legit wasn't expecting anything like remotely close to death metal. I also, you know, admittedly wasn't expecting like solid production. And honestly, this sounds pretty good. The drums, well, I'm pretty sure it's a drum machine. They sound good. They sound crisp and clear. The guitar tone is beefy. It's got just, you know, a good solid fucking like body to it. It works well with the atmospheric sections. It works well with like the more chuggy stuff in here. And the vocals all cut through the mix really well. This sounds really good. And this also gets like quite epically melodic, like big soaring melodies, you know, ascending, majestic, you know, just huge sounding like scenic moments on here. Stuff that is like very akin to like Enslaved, I would say, but that also again gives way to like cold, dissonant, like more blackened sections with, you know, just ghoulish screams and such. The title track might be my personal favorite. I think that song is just flat out epic. It kind of just does everything that I think this band did pretty well on the entire album. I will say that the bonus tracks, well, all right. One is a cover of Summoning, which I'm not entirely familiar with that band, so I don't know their stuff, but I think the cover sounded really good, and I do want to check out more by Summoning. I feel like it's kind of like long overdue. But the other band, and I should have wrote it down, I'm really not familiar with the other band that they covered, but they do a like reprise of Lorien on here, which is like all these softer spots, like it's entirely like clean melodies, and I believe just all the female vocals. It kind of just works as like a more like folky passage, and you know, it's fine. I kind of prefer the, you know, regular version, and you know, given this album is super fucking long, that could have trimmed off some time. But overall, this was really good. I was kind of surprised by it. I wasn't expecting death metal riffs and death metal breakdowns in here mixed in with like epic, soaring, majestic black metal. It's kind of an interesting contrast overall, and I think it's pretty well executed here. In terms of like what you're a fan of, man, I don't know. Like, I mean, Enslaved felt kind of right. Again, I can't really say Summoning because I haven't listened to much, but the cover of Summoning on here did feel like it was kind of in a similar vein as, you know, a fair amount of the stuff. So I don't know. Just check this band out. This was pretty damn good. Mask, The Turning. This is the fourth album from this North Carolina-based stoner metal / psychedelic rock act. I got into them with their last album, 3, which I thought was pretty damn good, kind of in the same vein as like, I'd say like a little bit of Baroness and Mastodon. Like it was definitely proggy and psychedelic, but it had its heftier moments. This one, I feel like they really embraced like a lot of the psychedelia this time. The opening of this album on Chasm, you get these pulsating bass synths, psychedelic guitars. There's really solid builds on here. There's a lot of stuff in here that I feel like they kind of just went for like those like kind of psychedelic jams and such where like the band is just going because, I don't know, they're on a lot of acid and they just kind of want to see what happens. Albeit a lot more focus on here, but there's definitely a lot of like 70s prog influence on here in terms of like song structure. It still has its big riffs, but a lot of this I would say is a little bit more melodic, and man, like it just has like this fun vibe. Like the transitions feel smooth. Every song kind of feels like an interesting journey. Huge melodic vocal hooks across the board, which was another thing that kind of gave me that 70s prog vibe. That and the very elaborate guitar work. These guys pull from a lot of different camps in terms of like all the riff work in here. Like you have very elaborate, more like Middle Eastern melodies that show up in here, like kind of similar to bands like Forming the Void or Howling Giant. But you also have like more intimate, more rustic sections. Like The Cloth has like some really awesome banjos and some like decidedly Alice in Chains like vocal harmonies in there too. That one and Unwound have, again, this like heavy but rustic sort of vibe to it. And again, when it comes down to like their riff structure, sometimes like how they do it is very odd, but they always find a way to keep it like centered on the melody. Like this isn't so fucking like out there it's hard to follow. In fact, I would say the album flows beautifully. And generally just when you think it's getting a little too weird or too proggy or too psychedelic, it'll settle into something that is like just a little bit more like contemporary, like a good bluesy jam or something like that. Like Long Lost Light or the title track have like, you know, bluesy sessions on there. There's like some lap steel play in there. It kind of shrinks the songs back down to the roots and you get some great vocal melodies, good fucking sing-along moments. The whole album kind of works on these interesting contrasts. It feels huge, but at the same time it feels also very intimate and heartfelt. I don't know. I dig the hell out of it. Again, another one I'm not sure will be on my year-end list, but I really dig this. I've been jamming this a lot. It's good mood music. It's kind of a good break from all the death metal too. But yeah, if you're a big fan of, I mean, Mastodon and Baroness are kind of in that same vein, but add a little bit more like 70s prog to it, I guess, and like maybe less sludge metal, and you'd have something kind of close to this. But yeah, check it out. Damn good album. Disaster, Kill All Idols. This is the 10th album from this German blackened thrash, maybe blackened death metal act. It's kind of hard to say. Sometimes it's, you know, album to album. One's a little bit thrashier than the next one, or the next one's a little bit more death metal. Whatever. I've been listening to this band since, God, I think it was Satan's Soldier Syndicate. So, like, not as far back as, like, the beginning of this band's career, but kind of around, like, the middle of it. And I wanted to do a full-on review for this, but we just didn't have time. But, yeah, this is... I mean, like the best way I could probably describe it is if you've been listening to this band for any period of time, this is a Disaster album. It's fast, it's ruthless, it's just gnarlier than hell. Tons of fucking riffs that walk a balance between death metal, black metal, and thrash metal, solid vocals. I will say this one, you know, production-wise, it felt like a little bit thin on the guitars. I have at least 3 other albums, and I feel like the guitars on those albums were just like a little bit crunchier, a little bit meaner sounding. These sound a little bit thinned out, but I would say like the mix overall is pretty balanced. You get a good mix of like groovier tracks, thrashier tracks, more like sinister aggro tracks. Great Repulsive Force, Towards Oblivion, that's a fun punky number right there. Kill the Idol, Throne of Ecstasy. You know, those are nice, aggressive, just face-ripping, blackened thrash, blackened death. I don't know, like, again, kind of feels like it, you know, moves between the two. There's some good groovier numbers on here. Ashfled Ritual, Fathomless Victory, Stellar Remnant. Victory kind of sounds a little immortal-ish, like it feels a little bit more epic and, you know, definitely more centered on the black metal side of their sound. And there's definitely like a little bit of like Motorhead love on They Are the Law. You might as well say that they are the Iron Fist of the Law, because the riff is like very, very similar to the Iron Fist. This is all really solid, but my thing is, I think I've heard them do this album before and arguably a little bit better. Like, there are points in here where I feel like it kind of drags a little bit because, you know, this is nothing really new, but it is, again, still well executed. I kind of like the beefier production on like some of their previous albums compared to this too. Like, this feels a little bit thinned out, though I kind of do like the raw guitar tone. I feel like it just needs to be like a little bit bigger. Overall, though, still a pretty solid album. If you're a long-time fan of this band, you're still probably going to really dig it. Also, like touches of Art Noir in here. You know, again, like a little bit of Immortal here and there. It's pretty damn good. But to their credit, they've definitely written some better albums that I would probably go to maybe before jamming this one. But still, give it a whirl. It's pretty fun. Gulum of Gore. Ultimo Mondo Cane. This is the second full length from this Italian gore grind act. And because they're a gore grind band, they also have 15 splits, which is how I got into them. I got into them with their split with La Poma years ago, which I believe I got that in a care package from Grand Vomit Records a while ago. That was pretty cool of them. Anyway, I saw these guys that signed to Everlasting Spew. I wanted to check this out. And I'm not entirely sure if this band was a full band before or whether it was like a couple of members and a drum machine, because I mean, it's gore grind. There's a lot of that. But they definitely have a full band now. And this, compared to what I've heard, at least on that split, is even more dingy and murky and muddy and fucking gross. Like, it still has like the gore grind vibe, but in production wise, it almost feels more like, you know, old school death metal. Fucking just rotten gravy is just dripping across this mix, which that sounds gross, but believe me, with these song titles, that's gonna be like one of the least gross things I end up saying, I imagine. It's murky, muddy. The vocals are over the top, obnoxious, deep growls, but also you get some like high screams, and they're, again, all like very muffled. It's very Mortician-esque, and I mean, yeah, there are definitely some samples on here, but Mortician-esque in terms of like the barfs and gurgles and, you know, the super muffled vocals. Also like a little bit like, you know, Carcass's Reek. Like, imagine filling a garbage disposal with, I don't know, as many cans of cream and mushroom soup as you possibly can, and then turning it on and recording it, and then maybe pitch correcting it. That is pretty much the vocals on here. But musically, you get a lot of like, you know, like DB driven stuff, of course, blast. Surprisingly, a fair amount of groovier songs. And here's the part where I start saying song titles, and hopefully I don't get demonetized for them. But right from the rip, the intro track, intro, Cruelty abounds on this planet. Good, groovy, swampy chugs on there. Regurgitated entrails with intense mortification, like the mortification's the seasoning or the side dish on the main platter there. Also, in the cold room of my restaurant, you are dog food. There's gotta be some sort of story there. Also, chronic obstructive caustic vomit. That's like the best kind. And, well, what is clearly a love song. Fucked by a shovel, thrown into violent screams. There's a comma there between shovel and thrown. I suppose that's important because one naturally follows the other. Anyway, some nasty kind of grimy grooves on there to kind of break up all the blast patterns. And to their credit, the snare is only mildly obnoxious. Like, yeah, it's plunky as shit. It's got that piccolo snare sound, but it's not like so damn loud where it's just like an unlistenable thing. This overall, I mean, it's more of a novelty. Like, again, that's kind of how I greet a lot of gore grind. It's grindhouse horror slasher movies, blood and guts, the fucking red paint fucking blood too from the 70s too. Like, we don't want it to look remotely realistic unless it's like a collage on the cover, which they didn't do that, but they did put a picture of a sliced eyeball in the back for fun. I've been doing my best not to look at that. But yeah, overall, pretty fun listen. It's goopy, it's gory, it's grimy. If you're looking for something that's just absolutely putrid and gross and just a series of short offerings of just nasty brutality, check this one out. Pretty decent. And finally, and I've been showing this off in some streams here lately, I got an Obituary Box Set. Godly Beings, this is the first 4 albums, as reissued by Dissonance Productions. They've been doing a pretty good job of these reissues. Has, again, the first 4 albums, Slow We Rot, Cause of Death, The Incomplete, and World Demise. And I already own all those albums. Though, I will say I was thinking about replacing my copy of World Demise because it's the same copy I've had since high school. And I'll admit it struggles playing because I've played it a lot. But the version of World Demise on here actually includes Killing Victims Found, which is my favorite song that, I mean, should have been on that album. It was on the Don't Care single. But yeah, in terms of like extras, you get some live tracks and demos and such. But honestly, probably my favorite thing that I've got, well, I mean, some of this extra stuff is really cool. Like, I don't know, old band photos. Like, I just think that's fucking awesome. I mean, some of these are pretty damn famous. I dropped one of them. I'll go get that. You gotta have that one. The casket one has always been one of my favorites. And then, quite possibly, my favorite that I think they've ever had is the whole noose ones. And you get a cool booklet with pretty much the entire history of the band in there. You know, pretty much every incarnation up to Don't Care. So this will probably be handy when it comes down to the obituary ranking in terms of, you know, information and such. But yeah, this is one I would argue I didn't need, but I bought it anyway because I'm me and I was going to buy it. Ta-da, it's back together. I totally edited out the part where I dropped a lot of shit and fucking made a mess. But yeah, this wasn't actually too bad a price too. I want to say it was like a little bit over $50. And all these CDs, I believe, are remasters. They all sound fucking great. And it's Obituary. Everyone needs more Obituary, at least in my opinion. But yeah, dig the hell out of this. It's Obituary. I don't think I need to like upsell you or tell you more about this band that, I mean, a lot of people in metal fucking know. But yeah, as far as box sets go, this was pretty damn cool. And that will do it for this collection update finally, because I imagine this one is really fucking long. So I'm going to make the goodbye portion here relatively short. Might be a little while before I do another collection update. I'm going to start working on States of Metal stuff and some other stuff before I get down to any collection update related to anything. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and a lone perk is doing a members only live stream, which we're going to get back to doing more regularly now that schedules have started to align. But memberships are the main way to support the channel, and if you'd like to help out there, there's a join button down below for you to smash, headbutt, spit on, do whatever the hell you want to it. As long as it says you joined, then you did it right. And of course, thank you guys for all the likes, all the comments, all the support. It's amazing to see this channel grow. You know, you guys are large in part a reason for any sort of success we have had on this platform. And pretty much I'm never going to stop thanking you. Like, this is always going to be a thing. I mean, I imagine you probably thought I wasn't going to quit because I've been doing it for like 6 years now. But yeah, you guys are absolutely amazing. Looking forward to overloading you guys with more content once again. So one more big thank you, and we will catch you later.